Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from what is good wine on a first date, parenting tips, and not being afraid to ask for help. Here's your host, who was told by a guest at one time that he was a podcast influencer. How about them apples? Well, you know the truth about that statement. Tommy Maloney.
Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, the one, the only, who's been grounded, and I'm using grounded in a good way, a very good way. The dreaded day job because of what's going on in the world. I have decided, but I don't think it's going to last after getting an email from my boss today. Anyway, I am working from home these days. Yep. So coming to you from the home office in the burbs, somewhere in Colorado. And I'm super happy to be here. I'm super happy to finally put this podcast episode up. I've been holding on to it because I've been really afraid to put it out there because it was a technical nightmare. Partially because of our guest, who is a recurring guest, Amy Lyle. You know her with her book of failures, and then her other book hold on, I'm trying to pull up her website, and it has one of those, what do you call it? It won't stop. Okay, the next slide. We're All a Mess and It's Okay. That's her other book. We're All a Mess and It's Okay. Amy Lyle. And you're going to hear technical difficulties on this episode. And it was the most bizarre interview because, let me rephrase that, not interview, a conversation. Things are going really well, and then all of a sudden, Amy couldn't hear me. We lost connection. We started to record again. And you're going to hear this in this episode. We started to record again, lost connection again. Did it a third time, and finally towards the end, it happened again. But luckily, we were towards the end of the conversation. So, there you go. So, Amy Lyle, one of my favorite books, her book of failures. Find her on the IG, the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter. You'll find her everywhere, and we'll put that in the show notes as usual. But I'm super excited to have Amy on this show because we talk about the usual. We talk about failures. We talk about how to overcome failures. We talk about saying yes to opportunities. We talk about just moving forward, and especially the way our world is right now, it's really super vital that we stay focused and I don't want to sound like Pollyanna. If you don't know who Pollyanna is, Google it. But I don't want to sound like Pollyanna where everything is unicorns pooping Skittles. I get it. I understand it. I had a conversation with my grandmother this past weekend, checking in with her, seeing how she's doing. And the biggest compliment, I just want to say, the biggest compliment she gave me is, she said she was so happy I called her for the humor. And she needed to laugh, and that meant a lot to me. But at the same time, when I was talking with her, I how are you doing? You doing good? And she said just bored out of her skull because she can't leave her apartment. She lives in an assisted living home, and a great place. My son Connor, when he was a lot younger, he would call it the hotel because that's what it looks like, a hotel. But she was bored. She wanted to get out. She wanted to go outside. But I did say, well, at least your apartment is bigger than a jail cell, and that did brighten her up. She did laugh about that. So please check on others. Check on loved ones. If you have the time and maybe need a little bit of a laugh, I posted on LinkedIn a couple of tips to do while you're quarantined. And one of them was to just call a complete stranger and just ask, how are you doing? You doing good? You doing good? So there we are. I mentioned Amy Lyle's on the show. I mentioned just be kind to one another right now. Just be kind to one another. I'm nervous because I think that I'm going to probably lose my job. I really sincerely feel that. And I want to say that's okay, but it's not okay because I don't know what to do if I do. But I have a gut feeling that layoffs are going to be happening soon. And so I don't know what to do. Not yet, but that's okay. We'll get through it. We've our family, we've had our ups and downs as far as work related, and we'll get through this as well. And I hope you're doing good. I hope your family's doing good. If by any chance you're being quarantined right now and you're listening to this podcast, and if this is the first time you're listening to this podcast while you're quarantined, well, thank you. I hope it puts a smile on your face. I hope this interview... Dang it. Slap my hand. This conversation. I hope this conversation with Amy Lyle puts a smile on your face. I'm really hoping that... and this is going to be a little bit of selfishness, but I'm really hoping that the dreaded day job lets me stay working from home, because we really want to get a dog. I want a dog. I miss having a dog. It's been over a year since the passing of Duke, our chocolate lab, and he was 16 years old and 1 week. And so it would be nice to have a dog once again in the house. Okay? Well, there we are. I don't know what else to say. I mean, like I said, I'm super excited that I'm working from home. Well, I'm supposed to be right now doing some online classes for work, and I have two setups in the house. I have one set up in the living room where my work computer is, and now I have, and then the home office is where the microphone and my personal computer are. So I try to distance myself from the work computer right now. So there you go. Whew. That's about it, really. I'm just gonna let you listen to this very interesting, very strange conversation I had with Amy Lyle. Again, the book "We're All a Mess and It's Okay" and "The Book of Failures" by Amy Lyle. Please reach out to her on the social. She'll enjoy your company. Let her know that you listened to this episode of the podcast. She's a great guest. I love having her on. And like I said, I'd been holding on to this interview, and I think this time is good to release it. So there you are. All right. Again, I hope you're doing good. I hope you and your family are getting through this. And I, for one, am just looking forward to a little bit of normalcy. But in the meantime, as Terry Crews would say, your success is my success. Stay well, my friends. Stay healthy. And just, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you, and that's it. I've rambled on way too long. Our guest, Amy Lyle, The Book of Failures. Amy Lyle.
Warning. You're about to listen to a conversation, not an interview.
It's the time of year we talk about failures.
I'm glad I'm your go-to failure girl. Excellent.
Yeah, well, because I'm the king of failures, so I gotta have a partner in crime.
That's right. That's right.
So let's first question is today. What have you failed at?
Today, what have I failed at today? Are we recording? Are you recording this right now?
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't narrow that down. to one thing. Let's see here. I had to go to church this morning, and I'm a volunteer, and I feel like I could have done a better job. I'm an actor at church, so you have to memorize a script every week, and I feel like I could have done a better job on stage. And I've just been doing it for so long, 10 years, that sometimes I can kind of memorize the script in about a minute. I just kind of look at it. They're very short little plays. So I feel like I failed. I failed my second and third graders. I should have prepared more.
But as humans, we are usually the worst judge of ourselves.
Oh yeah, the second and third graders, they don't know if I missed something. They're in second and third grade. Yeah. But I did.
So
I'm like, I could have made it better.
What would have you have changed?
I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like I didn't know the material like back and forth. I'm like, I'll wing it. I'll just wing it. And you should probably not just wing it. But it was still super fun. It was fun. It was like second and third graders on stage, and they had to play a game. And this doesn't sound very churchish, because we're playing this game called Choose Wisely, but their choices were as such where one of them got to throw like balls at one kid, and then the other kid got to throw water balloons at the other kid. So the other kids in the audience, there was like 200 kids in the audience. Of course, they went nuts. They thought that was so fun. But I'm like, wait a minute, we're choosing wisely and we're letting them like throw things at each other? What's going on here?
Well, as the social media world would say, hashtag epic fail.
I don't know if it was epic. It was like hashtag baby fail.
Baby fail. Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, in the past 24 hours, I failed at doing laundry.
I hear you.
I overloaded the washing machine, and therefore it was not good. My wife had to fix my failure there of laundry, and I pride myself of getting the laundry done and put away and all that good stuff. So I don't like it when she has to clean up my mess when I fail at doing the laundry.
Yes, if it says UB, that means unbalanced. It's probably overloaded. Yeah. Our kids do that. They try to shove 3 weeks worth of sweatshirts and towels into the laundry.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We live in troubled times.
When it comes to the world of washing machines, yes, we do.
That's right. So what are your goals for 2020? What's your top goal?
My top goal is to have the ability to make blending the family a sustainable business. Therefore, I can get rid of the dreaded day job.
Oh, that's a very good goal. I have a similar goal. My goal is money. So I've been at this. This is going into my 3rd year. So I've been having a lot of fun. But now I'm like, okay, I need to do more paid speaking engagements. And I had a really good book season for the Book of Failures and We're All a Mess, It's Okay. I was selling over 100 books a day towards the end of November, and then all the way up until December 23rd, because Amazon, you can get delivery in 1 to 2 days. So I had a phenomenal, and that's not all profit, because it costs a lot of money. Every time somebody clicks on a sponsored link, you have to pay 20 cents, 31 cents, or whatever. So it's expensive. But as I like to tell people, it's like half of something is better than all of nothing. And so, that's just the game you have to play if you're self-publishing, your books are on Amazon. And I don't even know how to advertise on Barnes & Noble. My books are on Barnes & Noble. I don't even know if you're allowed to advertise on Barnes & Noble. I'm not sure how that works. I've never tackled that.
Well, maybe that's something to look into.
But it just is very exciting, because that's, thousands of books that people bought. It was paperback, so I knew they were gifts, right? Normally as a writer, you sell more ebooks. But so that's exciting. Like somebody liked it and bought it for someone. So just knowing, you just never know who that is. What if it's a movie producer and they're like, oh, this would make such a fun sitcom? Like you you just never know. So it's kind of fun knowing that thousands of your books are in new hands, being read, which is nice.
Well, as I've ran into, I don't know why these past few months, where people I I just meet, and the phrase that's been my catchphrase for, again, the past few months is, if you don't ask the question, the answer is always going to be no.
Oh, for sure. I was in sales for 20 years. I mean, I'm still in sales now, right? Because you know how it is. You're
Yeah.
marketing. We're marketing ourselves. So it's like, hey, we have you on your podcast or your TV show or, whatever. You get no a lot, but that's okay. Just like you said, you just got to keep. It's a numbers game. You got to keep asking. I'm trying to. One of my goals, Tommy, is to get you have one, but I don't. A TED Talk this year. And so I actually went through this company in LA called Idea Collective, and they really help you hone your application, because that's the hard part, right? Is these TEDx events get thousands of applicants, so your application has to stand out. So they interview you for like several hours, and then they pull together kind of like the best points, and they just write it in a unique way. Even though I'm a writer, they just write it in kind of a more academic, type style that the tech people are looking for. So every day I try to do, several applications. So I've done 35. I've applied to 35 different TED Talks, but they told me it may take 100 applications.
That's funny you say that. My wife is under the weather, so last night I slept on the couch, and because I don't want to be sick,
Right.
and I started thinking more and more about, okay, what can I do to improve myself?
Mm-hmm.
And so a couple of things that popped in my head, Amy, was I remember there was one really done well, motivational video from Will Smith. Well, I watched that and I'm like, it really started to pump me up. And then I ended up watching a TEDx talk, and I didn't realize this. Kevin Bacon has done a TEDx
Yeah,
talk.
I don't love his TEDx talk, and I'm always leery when it's a movie star, and they really pride themselves on not bringing in movie stars, because like even Bono, who I
Yep.
love, I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
did you coach him on this talk? Because I did not think it was phenomenal, and I love him. Like I like Naomi McDougall. She's a independent filmmaker, and she came out and she talked about there's 50% of the people in film school are women, and then immediately that drops of who gets the entry level jobs, how many men versus women, what percentage, and then by the time it's like at a big studio, it's like 1% women. And so anyway, she's talking about how to change that, and the role of independent film, and those female dominated independent films making money, and so the studios should start paying attention to that, right? It's like that's what they want to make is money. So if female dominated films make money, they need to make more female dominated films. Anyway, my point is, I sometimes when I see the celebrities, I'm kind of like, but you enjoyed the Kevin Bacon one?
I really enjoyed the Kevin
Oh,
Bacon
was it
one.
about giving back?
Yes.
Yes, I did see it. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it was funny because our topic of, failures, but he was talking about that he just felt that because he was Kevin Bacon,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
he got
people would pour
trouble.
money into him, and they
Exactly.
didn't. Yeah, I remember. I remember that. Mm-hmm.
But it didn't start off that way. It started off, he thought he could just sit back and just wait for the donations, and it wasn't that way, because he wasn't, when it comes to, as he was saying, when it comes to uh, nonprofits, they want a story, they want a network, they want to meet people. They don't want to just give money, they want to know the value. And he learned that the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
And but after that, I started thinking, I too need to put on my big boy pants and not be afraid of the answers of no. And, the not being afraid to take risks. And so I have really made a conscious effort to take more risks. And for me, that's trying to get more podcast episodes out, to have good guests such as yourself, because you're a returning guest, Amy.
I know. Thank you for inviting me. That's the biggest compliment when someone's like, we want to come back. I'm like, sure. Of course, I wanted to come back and have like movie news, but my movie news is that I had 4 investors investing in my movie, $250,000 a piece. And then the state of Georgia did some real aggressive pro-life legislation. And my 4 Hollywood investors said, bye-bye. And my executive producer basically said bye-bye. So now I'm back at square one. That's one of the reasons why I want to do a TED Talk too, because I'm kind of like, what if I get 1 million views or 4 million views? Certainly out of that, do you know what I mean? Like, that's how it is in this business. You're like, okay, this door closed. So what can I do to bring attention to my cause or my project? And so then you have to like keep figuring that out. I thought it would be a book. So I wrote a book. It was a bestseller. Then I thought another would be a book, another book. And that's been a bestseller. And then, okay, I'm going to start I'm going to be on TV. So I'm on a morning show every other week. That'll bring me a movie producer. Okay, I'm going to start my own show in the burbs. That's going to bring me a movie producer. And so it's just like, I just keep doing fun projects, all in the name of trying to get somebody to produce my movie, Tommy.
Well, and the thing though is, real quickly for me, I'm trying to put out more writing content on Medium.
Sure.
Because that's one of the things I want to risk. I just want to put myself out there. But to your point about trying to do more and more projects, years ago, I was driving from Las Vegas airport. I had like a 2-hour drive to, I think, Utah. And I was listening to an interview from Success Magazine, and it was Darren Hardy interviewing Tim Ferriss. And towards the end, the question to Tim Ferriss from Darren Hardy is, what one piece of advice can you give out to, entrepreneurs? And he said, it just takes one. It just takes one piece of video content, writing content, podcasting content that could change your life. And the more projects it sounds like you're doing, Amy, the more you're getting yourself out there, the more you're getting, visibility, instead of just sitting back and going, well, that didn't work. Woe with me. Epic fail. I'm just going to sit here and have a pity party of a table of one.
Yes. And I enjoy, I'm picking projects that I enjoy. And sometimes, I am a religious person, and I really, for a while there, was so obsessed and like depressed because I couldn't, I just don't know my way around that business. I just don't. I'm in Atlanta, and I know there's a lot of film here, but I'm not, really tapped into that. So that needs to be on my list too, is get more tapped into the film scene here. And so I finally was like, God, I feel like you've given me some gifts, and please let me use those gifts in a way that it is appropriate and is glorifying to you. And hopefully that will lead to this movie being made. But I really, when it comes down to it, okay, if my movie never gets made, I have done so many fun things. Like, I never in a million years thought I would be on a show or have my own show. I never in a million years thought I would be in independent films. And now I'm, I am tapped into that, but those are, even though my film's independent, these are very small independent films. They cost $20,000 to make, and mine, it's going to cost $1 million to make. And I never, even though I used to be a corporate trainer and very comfortable doing public speaking, to get paid to speak, I'm like, what? And, okay, yeah. And so that's the way I look at it now. I mean, I do try to manifest and see myself at that red carpet event and, picture the movie being made. And I haven't given up on that dream, but I'm kind of like, I'm pretty happy and fulfilled with the projects that I do get to do. So sometimes you have to adjust your expectations, It's kind of like writing a book. Like, I would love for my book to be a New York Times bestseller. but I couldn't, get a publisher. So I published it on my own, and seeing, my book next to Kevin Hart or Trevor Noah or, Anna Faris or Tina Fey or Amy Poehler is just like, or Jenny Lawson is just like, that's a huge win for me. I'm like, okay, my book, my little self-published book is sitting next to all these Random House, all of those are published. All of them have been New York Times bestsellers. And there's my book sitting next to Jim Gaffigan. So but if I would have thought I'm not going to be happy until I have a publisher, I'm not going to be happy until I have a New York Times bestseller, then I'd be pretty miserable. So I got, you got to celebrate the wins that you have.
I want to go back to you talking about having some faith. How do you know when you received a sign from God? Because I'm trying. This is a little path I'm trying to carve out. Is how do I know when God has spoken to me and tried to nudge me in one direction or another direction? How do you know, Amy, that God has shown you a sign?
I don't know the answer to that other than interesting, fun opportunities career-wise keep presenting themselves to me. But there's only been a couple times in my life where I felt like God was like, and you will do this, one of them is I was a single mom and I got laid off back in 2008. And luckily I was living, I had a very high paying job and I had a very little tiny lifestyle. And so, I had money saved up. So I was like, oh, well, all right, I'm not going to starve. But after 5 months, this is 2008, I was a sales trainer for the staffing industry. The staffing industry was practically wiped out. Nobody was hiring. Nobody was hiring. We were in a major, recession. So I can remember like really literally falling to my knees and being like, what should I do? And I was, excuse me, I was getting jobs, offers for downtown Atlanta, where I live well over an hour out of Atlanta, and I had a small child. And with traffic, it could be 2.5 hours getting home. Atlanta traffic's famous. And so I knew that wasn't the best thing to take some kind of downtown job. And so I literally kind of had a meltdown. I'm like, what's going to happen? And please show me a sign. And I'm holding out, not taking a downtime job because I don't think that's what's best for me and my daughter. I'd be away from her for at least, 2.5 hours, three additional hours a day. And I already worked a job that required 10 or 12 hours a day. And I really, threw myself to the ground. And literally within 2 days, I got an offer, and it was 9 miles from my house. And it was also tenacity, right? It's not like I wasn't making any calls or I'm just sitting around. I treated getting a job like a job. I was on my computer making calls every day. And I don't know, but that's one of the few times I felt like God was like, thank you for asking. Thank you for surrendering and realizing that you cannot do this on your own and that you need me. And here's a job in Alfredo. But I don't know. That's just, it definitely felt that way for sure. And yesterday I did a speaking engagement at, they're called the Wonder Women of Wealth. And there were like 100 women there. And I was sitting next to this woman, and she was saying she was an extra, she was an actor, and she just wished she could get some more parts. And even if people didn't have to pay her, she just wants to get her name out there. And I was like, oh, I have a little streaming show called In the Burbs. Would you like to come as character? Like you could come as my bossy sister or my bossy aunt or something, and we could write really funny scripts where you would come on and you kind of boss me and my co-host around, kind of ranting. And she goes, I knew God put me in this seat for a reason. So she thought that was a sign. Maybe it was. I don't know. Tommy, are you there? Hello? Hello? I feel a lot of pressure to do a stand-up comedy routine because I don't hear you and I feel like people are listening to nothing. Hello? Hello?
I've never run into this.
Welcome to my world. I am the person that will bring you this because I'm the person that I'm running out to do a speaking engagement and I hit the print button and there's no ink and the printer dies and I have a black cloud that follows me around. It's true. And I just have to, what am I supposed to do? I just get up the next day and try to do what I can, Tommy. That's all I can do.
This is insane. Where were we, by the way?
Where were we?
I know something you said about figuring it out, because I always remember, what's her name? Maria Folio?
I don't know.
That was her mom saying, we'll just figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of that is that I can't remember you and I can't remember. I remember Mark. You can't remember the person that said it. I can remember the person. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's Mark Zuckerberg. And he's like, 80% done is better than, 99%, you're not going to turn it in. Like you got to move forward. Nothing is perfect. So I'd rather take, 80% than nothing. You got to move forward. Nothing is perfect. You could go over that book a million times. Every time you'll find an improvement. Every time you would find something to improve. Guess what? Self-publish it. And if you find an improvement, you can change it in the manuscript, and the very next book that's printed has your change, has your edit. So print it. Get a content editor, get a proofreader, be thorough, but then once it's there, you got to move forward.
Well, I think that's life as well. When you get knocked down, like like trying to record a podcast, and you keep running.
Dropping.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, you do need to keep moving forward, and I think that's where one of my past podcast guests, Gabrielle Hartley, she reached out to me to write on her website, and one of the topics was finances. And my biggest thing was I was always really bad at my finances, because I watched my parents divorce, and neither of my parents had any kind of money. They both struggled, and I didn't want to fall into that trap, but I ended up falling into that trap because I didn't know any better. And through our church, my wife and I went through, not once but twice, the Dave Ramsey course.
Oh yeah,
and
phenomenal course. Mm-hmm.
and it saved our marriage.
Sure.
So that's the topic I'm going to write about, is not to totally endorse everything Dave Ramsey, but it a lot of it makes sense. And as adults, you can say, this is for me, or this isn't for me, or I like this part but I don't like this part. And so it goes back to what you're saying, is that
give them the information. Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's interesting in the I shared with you I was in the literally temporary staffing, like the contract workers for almost 20 years. I worked in that business. And what's so interesting, like let's say we had a giant clients like Honda or GE, AT&T, Sprint. Atlanta has a lot of, it's like a little Fortune 500 area, lots of big companies here. And so most of those companies, okay, they say, okay, we pay you $12 an hour. But if you work here for 90 days and you don't miss any days and you get here on time and you do your shift, in 90 days, we're going to bump you to $19 an hour, and you get benefits, and you get 2 weeks off, and you get education allowance. Do you know what percentage of people actually made it 90 days?
I'm going to say 25%.
1%.
Wow.
And you know what? Because in this, I truly believe this. There is an absolute freedom in making $10 an hour. You don't have to go to work, because you could go someplace and get another $10 an hour job tomorrow. You could. And so it's just like, and I'm not seeing people have circumstances like, I absolutely think that we should have some kind of subsidized childcare for people that need it. I think it's forcing single women to stay in the rut of needing assistance, and instead of let's give them education, let's give them some assistance with daycare to help them get out of that, right? Because you have to make a certain amount of money to be able to pay for daycare. So absolutely, I think we need a better job, do co-oping or I don't know, something with that. But it was amazing of how many people, and it's like, okay, you're making 10 or 11 in 90 days. You could make 20. So you're making 20 grand. You could make 40 grand, and they wouldn't do it. They couldn't get there on time.
Yeah, I remember those days when I was a trainer in the call center world, and you would have people bounce from one call center to another because, they'd come in, do let's say 2 weeks of the training, and then they'd leave and go to another call center and do the same thing because they knew that they could get away with it.
Yeah. There's such a high demand for that. So it's interesting, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. I think when you know better, you do better. But it's just interesting because we explain that right away. We're like, look, I know this only pays $12. However, you get, this amazing benefit package. You get education assistance. I mean, I can remember we work with Yum Brands, not me directly, but when I was a corporate trainer. I mean, they have daycare, they have a sick room when you have kids, they have subsidized lunches, they have dry cleaning in the building. I mean, they treat their employees like gold. But you have to show up if you're going to get hired on full time. You have to make this a priority. And it was just amazing, the people that couldn't do it. It's just weird. I mean, when I was in sales, I was like, temporary staffing, we have the best of the worst. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
why are these people unemployed? Some of them are really unemployed because they're teachers and they're awesome. They got the summer off. They're phenomenal. And then other people, they really just moved into town and they really want a job and they're phenomenal. But there is a certain population that, they just have trouble in that area. They're not bad people. That's not their forte, is to be able to get up every day and go, grind it out. So that's all right. And so they're lucky to have, employment agencies that will employ them, and so they can still survive. They can, just like you said, they work a few weeks here and then they take a few weeks off, and then they work a few weeks here and they take a few weeks off, and just like I said, that gives them an immense amount of freedom. There's no judgment with that at all. Just do whatever you want.
What is something that you can offer to the listeners as far as bouncing back from, let's say, just for example, all right, so the past 10 years has for this individual has sucked. Maybe their past 10 years, their passion has been to become an artist, become a writer. What can you offer them? What advice to move forward?
Um, I think if you want to be a writer, that's what I kind of know the most about, but is to, unfortunately, you may have to do some stuff for free to get your name out there. And so an easy way to do that is, if there's a local paper or local magazines, which there normally are in our communities, is you just send a 350 word, ask them, the publisher's name is on the, front couple pages, write the publisher or the editor and say, hey, I'd like to submit a writing sample. And they're normally like, okay. And a lot of those, you just have contributors. So there's very few staff members that are being paid for those kind of publications. But at least now you're published. You're getting your work published. And so you can start building a body of work. And then once you're comfortable with that, then you can start submitting. There's, thousands of places that you can submit your work to get paid. Thousands. You can buy a book about it. You can look it up online, whatever. But I would definitely keep the writing as a side hustle for a while, because keep your day job, because it's not lucrative in the beginning. It's really expensive. And the same for, like, I want to be in film. I'd love to get paid to be in film, but I don't really know that much about it. I'm not a trained actress. And so what have I done is I'm in independent films and I take small roles and I watch and I learn and I listen to the director and watch the lighting guys and try to learn, as much as I can. Watch, the more seasoned actors and how they handle their lines and their expressions or whatever. So, I guess it just depends. If you just want to get into something because it's interesting, there are a lot of opportunities. You can do things. You're just not going to be paid that well for them. But, every step that you're doing is a step closer to your goal. So why not, start assessing that information for yourself and experiencing it. It might be something you think you want to do, and then you do it. You're like, okay, this isn't as much fun. I'm on set for 16 hours a day, and I got to be back here at 7 a.m. tomorrow. So, I guess that's my advice. You have to do it like we do. Tommy, you have to do it, say yes, and then figure it out. But the important thing is, if you want to be a writer, to write, right?
Right.
Right.
Literally.
I feel like this is the weirdest podcast I've ever done. You know what I mean? Like your debate in Facebook where people say their cat has died. I mean, do you do a comment? Do you do a sad face? What about when their grandma dies? You know what I mean? Like, it's really a lot of pressure. What does that mean when you put a sad face? Is that enough? Is that enough for the death of a cat or a grandma? Is it, Tommy? Is it?
Well, number one, I'm not on Facebook. Send the person a card.
Well, you have thousands of friends on Facebook, so some of you don't really know. You just kind of know them peripherally. So you could send them a Facebook card, like a GIF. That's appropriate. A death
there you
gift.
go.
They should come up with some death gifts or death memes. You know what I mean? Like maybe flowers, or I don't know. Maybe you and I should invent that. There needs to be a better way to express you're sad, because you are sad when someone's animal dies or someone's grandma dies or whatever. You are sad. I don't think that there are tools that we need on Facebook to depict our pain for them properly. You and I can work on that this year.
Well, ironically, my former wife texted me just yesterday to say that they had to put down one of the dogs, and this dog, the dog's name, her name was Kiwi, and Kiwi was my dog. And when we talk about the world of divorce, not only do you lose that time with your kids, there are times where you will lose the ability to see
Not me. We got
your
50-50
pets.
custody. My pet
I tried.
That is so sad. I mean, our pets are just like our kids. I mean, they are like, I love animals so much. And right now it tickles me. I'm seeing all of the koalas being saved, and little kangaroos and little,
Right.
like, their individual little baby cribs. And it's so sweet that and they have these special dogs that put on these special outfits, like fire wear, like dog firemen, and they go out and they find those animals, and they're remarkable animals, the dogs that find these animals. And so they've saved thousands of koala bears.
Koala bears aren't really friendly.
I have heard that, but they're friendly.
Yeah.
They are scared. I mean, they've been able to save a lot of them, and some of them are burned. It's so sad. It's so sad.
It is. But the fires in Australia, I mean, the nice thing is a lot of people are trying to throw financial support and try and help as best they can. And you have the sadness more for the animals at times than you do for the people.
I know, you're right.
But I think that's the way a lot of us are wired.
I've seen a lot of. I'm sure I would. I love a human interest story. I've just seen on social media the animal pictures, and you're right. I was, I'm sure people are being displaced by the thousands. It's terrible. So scary. Such a horrifying lose your home, or just awful, 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 awful.
So here's the list I came up with, Amy, of the top 5 things Amy brought up in this podcast. Number 1, celebrate your wins.
Okay, celebrate your wins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Number 2, keep moving forward.
Yes.
Number 3, how do you know? What we talked about, knowing when God speaks to you. You don't. It might be a feeling. It might just be an aha moment.
But I do think you should pray for that. If you're a praying person, if you're not a praying person, then don't.
Yeah.
I guess you would call it manifesting, kind of, if you weren't a praying person, where you're kind of putting it out there and you're like, hey, I want this in my life, or I want more of this, or please let these opportunities present themselves. I do think, in, I shouldn't say I haven't seen that. I'm not one of, how some people are just like, and that's when I knew, and they literally, um, knew. So I don't want to say I haven't been immensely blessed. I have. That's my answer for that. I feel like I keep praying for, like, please give me opportunities that let me use my talents and lift people up. And I feel like in all different ways those opportunities appear, and they're normally not opportunities that I had even thought of. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do that.
Number 4 is personal value. So know your value.
Mm-hmm.
And number 5, figure it out. Just figure it out.
Say yes, and then figure it out. Yeah.
I think that's something Richard Branson said many, many years ago. Just say yes to opportunities.
Right. We tell our kids that all the time, right? Like, part of growing up and getting a job is figuring out what you don't want to do. So sometimes you don't know that till you do it. And it's okay if you think you want to do something and you do it and you're like, wait a minute, that's way too much time behind a computer or whatever. But now that's not a failure to take a job and then realize that's not the job for you. That's not a failure. That's called learning. And then, making an adjustment.
Well, it's learning from your failures.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, taking a job that let's say you want to be in PR. So you take a job in PR and then you get a job in PR and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like a lot of work for not a lot of money. And the clients are demanding. And I don't think I like customer service. And boy, there's a lot of deadlines. That's not a failure that you don't want to be in PR anymore. You might discover you're like, but I really like this part of the job. I want to do more of that. So I don't think that's a failure at all. I think that's just a learning curve.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's on Amy's plate next? You have In the Birds. You've got
Those of you that are listening to Tommy's podcast, I need an executive producer. I need $1 million to make my film Fake Mom. It's going to be hilarious. It's like Bridesmaids meets, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. So that's on my plate, and I'm really, really excited to going through this TED Talk application process. How long does it take? Because you've done it. How many applications does it take? They said 80. You think that's really the case? Like, you apply, then how quickly do you find out they're not going to contact if you don't get in. So
no, they will.
Days?
They'll contact you.
They will. They'll say denied. Application denied.
No, it will be more positive. Oh, good English, Tommy. More positive. It's positive in a way, saying, "Oh, we, had thousands of applicants, and please keep trying," because I have applied TEDx Denver 3 times, been rejected 3 times. The TEDx talk I did here in the Loveland, Colorado area, I was very fortunate because at the time I had hired a business coach, and he was part of the people on the committee.
Evaluation board.
Yes.
Yeah. The selection. Mm-hmm.
Plus, he knew I was in Toastmasters and I was in National Speakers. So he knew that I wasn't just. I had something to bring, and I had spoken at other events that he had seen. So, But my big goal, as far as TEDx goes, yes, is to do another one. Funny you mentioned that. I was on after watching the Kevin Bacon one. I just Googled TEDx speakers application, so I found a few. But it does take time.
And anyone doing it, I want to give them a tip. If they ask you, like, would you like to promote anything? And I'm like, sure, I have 2 books.
No,
Kiss of Death.
exactly.
They put that on there as a trick question, like the GRE exam. So don't do that. You're not allowed. If you're an author, you can put in your biography, it may ask like, what's your primary profession or whatever. But if they say, do you want to promote anything? The answer is no. No, because you're not allowed to promote a book. Now, that doesn't mean during your talk you couldn't maybe bring something up in your book, especially if your book's on the topic that you're talking about. But that's a kiss of death. So, and I didn't know that. So the first 25 I did, last year, I was like, I didn't know. It's like they're setting me up for failure. But now I know. I've learned. So don't make that mistake. Never, ever, ever put that you want to promote.
Yeah, it's not about self-promotion. It's about giving ideas as the
Right.
whole TED foundation is about, is ideas. And what ideas can you
Right.
share that your audience is going to take back with them and go, oh, I didn't know that.
Mhm. Yeah, why is it new? Why is this new? And that's hard because there's nothing new. So you got to kind of rack your brain. Why are you the best person to give this talk? What, impact do you want your audience to take away? So my suggestion, I haven't got a TED Talk, so I'm kind of giving suggestions, which I'm only giving them because I went through a very expensive course, is that you really, really spend time on your application and answer those thoroughly, and maybe even get a second or third opinion from a writer or a coach to make sure that your application jumps off the page of what your idea is and why you're the best to present it. Because it is, like you said, Tommy, it's they get thousands of applications each event.
Well, and
Very
also
competitive.
some TEDx applications are asking for video. If you don't have a video,
Yes.
that's rough right there.
Yeah, and you know what? They accept videos. It's so funny psychologically. I do stand up comedy, and on a show, I do videos all the time. And I just I just couldn't do the video. I had a mental block. But guess what? Only 1 in 10 ask for a video. And I had so much video of me on other people's shows, I could send it, but some of them were like, no, we want a 2-minute video of you talking about your idea. And finally, I just sucked it up and I wrote it. And it felt good because if you're going to do a TED Talk and talk for 6 to 18 minutes, you can talk for 2 minutes. And so I just, talked briefly about why this idea was important to me, why I think it's important to others and can change other people's lives. And why I wanted to be a part of their TED Talk. And so it took me like 10 minutes because I did it 3 times to come up with a 2-minute video. And then, and now I have it. And I'm like, okay, why did I sit there for 6 months and worry about applying because I don't have this stupid video? Just make the video.
I'm going to play a little psychiatry on that. And that, to me, sounds like a little bit of imposter syndrome.
What does that mean?
So imposter syndrome essentially is you don't feel your value is good enough for others. So why should I start a business? Nobody's going to care about my idea. Somebody else will come up with that idea. So that's a bit of imposter syndrome.
I disagree. You know what I think it
I'm ready.
was? I do not like to do anything partial. So I wanted to have my entire TED Talk written before I could fill out one application. That's me. I want to have my application. I want to have the TED Talk done and memorized before I apply. And one of my friends, Frank, he's done 5 TED Talks. He's getting ready to do a 6th
Wow.
one. And he's a unique comedian because he's a comedian and he literally is clinically depressed and suffers from like suicidal thoughts. And so he is a very popular speaker at like dentistry conferences, air traffic control, very high, literally very high suicide rate type industries, and taking the shame away from that in his journey. But anyway, he was telling me, he's like, what are you, crazy? He's like, they could tell you that you can talk for 5 minutes, or they could tell you that you're going to have to talk for 20 minutes. So don't even write your talk
Right.
yet. He's like, you have an idea. He's like, but all they want to know right now is your idea. And it just something clicked to me. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Why am I not applying? The clock is ticking. It's already January. And so now, the window is closed. If you want to do something in February or March, those venues are closed. So now I have to move on to, the middle part of the year. But so that's another piece of advice we could give. If you're thinking about a TED Talk, you do not have to have your talk completely figured out. Even if you have an outline, you focus on your application and your idea, and you do that, and then they're going to assign a coach to you, and you're going to develop an outline, and they're going to help you develop your speech. So don't panic about that. Just get the passion of your idea well written for your application. That's the most important.
So let me give you backstory on mine, Amy, and that is, and I don't know if every TEDx event does it this way, but the event I was at, they would have somebody do their talk, and then they would show a TED or a TEDx video after, just weaving live versus video into the event. Well, right before I was going on stage, the video presentation was about a gentleman whose family was all part of Al Qaeda. So
Oh gosh.
I go into I go into a little bit of a meditative state, just calming the nerves and all that, and I can hear what this talk is about. And the little voice inside me said, "You're going to have to regain this audience because that talk was very heavy, and you're
Right.
coming out with a light subject talking about blended families and divorce, a little bit of depression, but you have to come onto that stage with energy and ready to go." And at that time, the big um, so-called fad at the time was in a lot of men's magazines was the dad bod. And the dad bod is, you have a little bit of beer gut, but you're somewhat fit. Well, that's totally not me. And when I stepped on stage, I said, "Well, I just want to let everybody know I am rocking the dad bod," and I got some laughs. Okay, that's what I needed. Was I had to bring that audience back. If you're not somebody who speaks a lot, you're not going to have that kind of insight. And so, luckily for me, being in National Speakers Association and the Colorado Speakers Association, and speaking at being part of Toastmasters and speaking at Toastmasters events, luckily I had that in my back pocket, or else it would have been a failure because I would not have known how to energize an audience. I would not have known that, what the previous topic, how deep it was. Stepping on stage, you have to command that audience. And luckily for me, I was able to do
And the
that.
first 15 seconds, you either have them or
Right.
don't. Yeah, but you know what? If somebody is listening to this and they're doing that, any kind of talk, and they feel intimidated by the previous speaker, you just have to be you, because you cannot change the circumstances. So you just have to stick to your guns and know that your material is good, and it may be not exactly, the right timing where they put it in the lineup, but you can't control
Exactly.
that. So the only thing you can control is doing the best that you can do. And guess what? You're going to go home with a phenomenal, the videography of that you're going to be able to use to book your next gig. And so that's all you can do is think about, how can I make this the best talk ever? That's it. And if it flies, it flies, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But you can't just wither up and die because you're like, crap, I'm not going to be able to beat that, or that's too heavy, or whatever. Because you know what? Not very many people can relate to Al Qaeda, but everybody can relate to blended families. Everybody.
True.
Everybody can relate to blended family. We all know people that are divorced or whatever. We've been divorced or whatever. So your topic is important. I know it didn't feel like it was as important as that, but it is important because it impacts so many people's lives.
I hope so. I really do.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll talk to you next year.
Or when the movie comes or is in production, pre-production, I want to know. We all want to know.
I just need $1 million.
Well,
or somebody that needs an executive producer, or somebody who's friends with an executive producer, preferably female, that loves comedies. I just need an introduction. Or an agent.
have you thought about doing like a Kickstarter?
Yeah, that's going to be my last resort. I don't know why. I'm kind of snobby about the whole, I don't want my friends to fund it. I want a movie person that's a movie investor to invest in it. That's what I had before. It's It's worthy. I am worthy.
You are worthy of that, Amy.
Fake mom is worthy of a big investor. This may be my year for that, I hope. I love it when I listen to a lot of NPR. It's so funny because I go back from talk radio that's kind of conservative to, NPR, which is very, liberal because I like to be balanced. And it's so funny and heartwarming when I hear, I can't remember the film that's coming out right now. It's all exciting. It has Adam Sandler in it, Jim, Rod
Oh,
Jones
yeah,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah, so the writer of that was on NPR, and he was talking about, and it made my heart get warm because he goes, "I've been working on this project for over 10 years," and so many times you hear that. The Project Lincoln took 15 years. So many times you hear that. So it's like that is inspiring to me. Where I'm like, you know what? I haven't been doing this for 10 years yet. So I'll start crying after it's been 10 years, but it takes a long time. So it's just timing of what people are looking for, the current climate. Do they want to, this or that? So I'm just going to keep believing that it's going to happen and that the right investors come and the right director comes and the right cast and the right team to come together to make something magical. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm not just taking anybody's money, Tommy.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family, the podcast. If you come back, you get a 2-for-1 coupon. Woohoo! Daddy. You might even get some spam with that. Please leave a rating and review. However you get this podcast, whether it's through the mail or from your neighbor or listening in under the couch. I don't know. You tell me.